Hi, family, and welcome back to our Thinking Thanks Tuesday with me. Welcome back to our Thinking Thanks Tuesday on Kosa Chick TV with me, Zoliswa. So, hi, and welcome. So, today, like any other Tuesdays, what we do is we look at our current affairs, which have been what news have been making headlines in South Africa or around the world, and so on. So, without wasting any time, let's get to this week's Thinking Tank news. As you all know by now, if you're a South African, the news from I think from Friday morning, Thursday evening last week, it has been about Cliff Central, Gareth Cliff, Steenhuisen, and the Black Lady, which were on Cliff Central and Nando's. So yeah. So the whole thing, which whereby it all started with how white people, especially white, that one in that incident was white males act toward a black woman, whereby it was supposed to be a free debate about, as you all know, elections, local government elections are coming in South Africa, and every independent candidate is lobbying, canvassing everywhere. So there's this guy by the name of Gareth Cliff, typical. I know him. He was a DJ from 5FM. So even from 5FM, he has had his bit of. He's a typical white arrogant person, South African, because he's got all that white privilege you can think of. So that's him. So he has been his own whatever cheerleader in whatever he does, because he's got everything to back him up. He's white. So this time around, he's got his own online or whatever they call it, Cliff Central station, which I had a show named Burning Fire, whatever. It was sponsored by Nando's. I don't want to give too much into what he does, because he can do whatever he wants to do. He's white. And then there it happens that he was having a debate with a black woman and a white male, which from the Democratic Alliance. It's an opposition party in South Africa, which is like your right wing, white people party, which is the grandchild of National Party, which was the party which was involved during apartheid years. So yeah, DA comes from National Party, and Democratic Party. DA comes from National Party, DP. That's where they come from. You can even see in the backdrop, you'll see Tony Leon popping up every now and again to show you who's still driving the steering wheel behind the scenes. Your typical white people. So what happened in that show, it got out of hand because your typical Gareth Cliff was just white and couldn't understand. He was fed up with black people talking about racism and so on. He only wants to hear about service delivery and so on. The way he did it, it was so nasty that as a black person, you will wish you could just go wake Mandela up and say, hey, come wake up, look at this, which you dish us, and say, this is the Rainbow Nation, this is how we get to be treated. So Gareth Cliff is tired of racism and so on. And the reason why he's tired of racism, because he hasn't experienced racism. He's the one who his forefathers were the one which were oppressing black people. So he would never understand how it feels like to be on the receiving side of racism, because his forefathers were the one which were puking racism all over the place. And he is the beneficiary of the whole apartheid, because after 1994 democracy, we as black people just celebrated seeing black people, black faces in our ballot papers, as much as the land, the economy. The white people kept everything. That's why they don't understand what are we on about as black people and talking about racism, whereby when they looted our stuff, our forefathers' stuff, then nothing happened to them. So they felt like it was their given right for their forefathers to loot our forefathers' cattle, land, and everything on behalf of them being white and coming to South Africa. And then we have to bow down and say, thank you for coming to South Africa. Because they've got this mentality, white people, especially your Helen Zille's got this mentality where they think that colonization came and really helped us as black people because it helped us to be civilized. The people in the Amazon don't care about roads, don't care about TV. They are free. They are natives. They're living among trees and they are hunting. They're still naked because they were never colonized. If we were not colonized in Africa, in South Africa, maybe we'll still be running around butt naked in bushes because we didn't care about what the West is doing, who wants gold or who doesn't want gold. So that one of we should be thankful to colonization because they civilized us as black people. We were never uncivilized. We were just happy and free. We were just God-given children enjoying. We were not busy greedy and trying to take everything for ourselves. You know, white people sometimes make it feel like as a black person, you are a curse. The minute you are born as a black person, it's just a curse. It's an extreme sport to be a black person. Don't even get me started to be a black woman, because as a black woman we are oppressed by our own black men, and then you still find your own black, your white women oppressing black women, and then you find white men oppressing black women, and you find white women oppressing black women. Anything which can oppress something in this earth, they could come to black women, and then at the end of the day, we supposed to feel like, yeah, racism doesn't exist because white people are tired of hearing about racism. Most of young black children, mostly girls, are being raped every day because their parents, their mothers are busy taking care of white children. Black parents, black mothers don't have time for their own flippant children because they are busy raising white children. And then we're supposed to be we're happy and we're supposed to be fine and say thank you for the new South Africa, and nobody understand what is systematical racism, because we are living in squalors. We're still really living in squatter camps as black people where there's no policing around, and every day you have to leave your house early to go take care of white people, and that's still the new South Africa we're living in. And we have to be grateful to your Mandelas because we've got a new South Africa only in paper, because we have to vote for them to keep them rich. Come on, people. We are still far from we still far from saying we are done talking about racism. We haven't even started talking about racism. We haven't even started talking about nothing. That 1994 Rainbow Nation bull was just for your Mandelas, for your Sisulus. I can name a few people who benefited from that. That's the ones which are busy keeping up with the white people, trying to say whatever the black person is saying is not good enough. That's why your Gareth Cliff comes, and then your black people, your black men still defend them and say, no, your Gareth Cliffs and your Helen Zillas are just your robustic and bold debaters. And then when it comes to the play of a black woman, they say black women in South Africa, they want to make you feel like you are a crying baby when you're telling them what's happening. Because white people might be crying over service delivery because there's no electricity in one street. Black people don't even have police. That's why our children are being raped, because we have to wake up early in the morning to go work for our madams and bosses, and then at the end of the day, they don't understand when you talk about racism because they're living in their white picket fences in your Sea Point, Constantia, because nothing was taken away from them in 1994. And they're still benefiting from apartheid system, which they don't understand why we black people are still angry. We are even pissed off at the ANC, if truth be told. We do not have trust in the ANC anymore because the ANC doesn't understand the bigger picture. Their pockets are full. They're the ones who think that just because they can live in Sandton, they can drive the latest cars, that everything is fine. And then they come and look down at the people when they want the people's vote. We are still far from being a rainbow nation in South Africa. We are still far from being happy in South Africa, especially the black woman. You haven't even touched the surface when it comes to the black woman, not just in South Africa, throughout the whole world. You don't know who's the black woman. You haven't even really get to understand the black woman. So for a white person, if you feel the urge to tell a black woman how to behave or when to talk about racism, you better know you've got it coming. You are going to feel it. So people, when it comes to being black, we can't choose to, when you are born, to say, oops, God, come on now, change, this is an extreme sport. We can't. We are given, it's our birthright to be black, and it's our birthright to talk out things which makes us not feel welcome on this earth, especially by other people which call themselves human beings as well. If you are decent enough as another human being, you should give another person an ear, because the reason why we're speaking about racism is because of white people feeling that they are superior than black people, and then they can just come and take and loot and treat black people anyway, anyhow they want. And 1994 helped nothing, because the reason why everything is like this, the only picture of a black woman in South Africa now is your typical Jezebel, your Zodwa Wodumo, your whatever. You don't have a picture of a strong black woman which is willing to stand up for the truth. Our black women are now just your typical faking to be white, bleaching our skins, putting long fake wigs because we wanna be white. We're not happy enough to be blacks. That's the black women which we have now in South Africa. A flippin' there's no motherly, there's no nurturing. It's just somebody which is busy Jezebel running up and down. That's your typical black woman in South Africa. As if we don't have any grey matter in us. If you are not that typical Jezebel, you are struggling, busy working for Madam, busy working for Boss. You can't just be a free, independent thinker which you can say your mind and just be happy and say, but this is me as a woman and as a black woman. Because nobody will tell you the pain of being a black woman more than you as the black woman. We are fighting 5 times harder, even in boardrooms. You'll find out it's not even a white man talking over you, it's another black man, because they are so intimidated by black women that they feel like, no, in order for them to raise a sister up, they rather oppress you. That's the struggles as a black woman we have to go through every flippant day. And then a white man just can come and say, no, I'm tired of hearing about racism all the time. And other black and other white men just sits there and have a smirk, but every time it's voting time, they don't mind to use a black face to gain their flippant votes. No, people, stop using black people as your flippant puppets. So it has went down. It was your Gareth and so on. I don't even know where I was. I am so pissed. It's not even funny, because I'm also angry at the ANC. It kind of feels like nothing is really being solved now. We haven't even learned how to talk with each other as humans, as decent South Africans, because you can't tell me that I must back off when a white person says, no, don't talk about that. What's the flippant point of being in the same space as a white person if I'm still gonna see a bus? What's the point? You might as well just not invite me and just make decision on behalf of a black woman if that's what you feel like. Because black women are undermined a lot, and thanks to our men which don't respect us as well. For a black man to date a white woman, it's an achievement on this earth. You will see how a black man will die for a white woman, but then will take the first stone to throw at a black sister. Anyway, that's it, your Gareth Cliff. And yeah, Nando's did drop him, but then they kind of feel like it was too harsh. The cancel nation is taking over, whereby white people of different views are not given a chance. Now, if you don't like what a person's saying, you can just press, or you can just go be a crybaby, and then they're gonna get punished. For me, it's not about punishing or whatever. It's about white people must learn to understand black people. We are not your flippant servants anymore. We are human beings. We matter just like you matter. So Whatever Garrett Cliff is losing by that, it's nothing, it's just a tip of an iceberg. He's got more, he's white. His forefathers sorted him out. Maybe he's got a trust fund somewhere. Anyway, that's what we've been doing, arguing. It's been about Garrett Cliff and how we as black people, South Africans need to just sit down and shut up. And how some black men feel like, yes, whatever Garrett Cliff is, it's just the way he is, he can't help it. And we as black women are just crying babies. Which is not true though, because I told you the only picture of a black woman now, even these politicians, it's just a picture of a flippant Jezebel which drinks things about makeup and men and wears skimpy clothes and go to clubs. Doesn't have any matter. Your Maya Angelou kind of women doesn't exist anymore, because those Maya Angelou kind of women are the ones which seems to be a problem, which seems to have a problem with everything and everyone. That's your strong black women, which we grew up knowing, your Maya Angelos, which used to stand up for the truth, not these Jezebels, which want to be white. And then every time we need to say, hey, your Bonangs, hey, your Kanyimbawas, hey, your Michelin Damases, whereby the only thing on their mind is just makeup and where to from here. Global trotters. So, uh, in the news today, let's see. Without wasting any time, says Mashaba reviews warm welcome in Soweto, receives warm welcome. Okay, as I said, now the only thing which is happening is the elections which are taking place. So all the parties are going up and down the streets, trying to convince us how they can screw us again. So we need to trust them again. So that's what we've been busy dealing with, and also President Jacob Zuma. Okay, let's just, I see this one. Okay, this is the lady, which I kind of forgot her name when I was going off. Okay, it says here, uh, I'm even shaking. It says here, I don't feel helpless or regret. Mutsuli Rakivane reflects on Garrett Cliff interview, and this was on the 26th of October 2021 at 11:44, and it was written by Unati Kanjeni. Okay, it says one SA movement spokesperson Mzuli Rakivane has reflected on her controversial panel discussion with media personality Garrett Cliff, saying she has no regrets about doing it. Rakivane was a guest on Cliff's The Burning Platform show on Thursday together with DA leader Johan Steenhuisen. They discussed politics and the November 1 local government elections. During the interview, Cliff dismissed her racism struggles as anecdotal and unimportant. Your personal experience are completely anecdotal and unimportant to all of us, sorry, Cliff told Rakivane. Reflecting on the incident in a lengthy social media post, Rakivane said the experience brought back memories of when she would walk away feeling small and frustrated with herself for not saying anything in the moment. While this situation has had its ups and downs, I sleep at night proud that this wasn't one of those times. I do not feel small, I do not feel helpless, I do not have regret, she said. She said was invited on the platform as one SA movement spokesperson and as a sole guest on the show. I logged on the platform, and to my surprise, the promo ad said it will be a discussion between myself and John Steenhuisen. Getting into a debate with John was not part of the plan, but this is the game sometimes, and I'm quickly learning to roll with the punches, said Rakivane. I'm spokesperson of an organization that is engaged with the work of electoral reform and is supporting independent candidates in the upcoming local government elections. It is my job to reach as many voters as possible and talk about their options, their rights, and landscape of the election. This was an opportunity to do that. I addressed the DA's false notion that voters only have two options in the election, being the ANC and the DA. I discussed the electoral reform bill and alternatives for those who are unhappy with the current political offering. She said the discussion was a mixed bag and there were moments of alleged irrational disrespect, racism, and sexism. Rakivani also responded to those who felt she should not have taken part in the interview, saying she should be able to go where the people are. I'm asking to be treated with dignity and respect, to be able to speak, and for my expertise, background, knowledge, and experience to matter. I should be able to go where the people are, just like my white male counterparts, and do my job without being subjected to that kind of behavior, she said. After the controversial interview, Nando's pulled the plug on its sponsorship of the Burning Platform show. Nando's said Cliff failed to create an environment in which free speech was possible. There are many instances in which Nando's has not agreed with the opinions of both guests and presenters on cliffcentral.com, but we have upheld their rights to express their views as core components of a healthy constitutional democracy. In the case of the Burning Platform episode, which aired on October 21, Nando's is on the view Garrett Cliff failed to create an environment where free speech was possible by taking over Mutsuli Ravikane and dismissing her view while not allowing her to adequately express it, said Nando's. And yes, they did drop the sponsorship for the show, so the Nando's no longer support. Oh gosh, my eye is killing me, and it's becoming redder every minute. So that's the what is happening, and then that was the interview. Okay, here is okay. Let's get this one. So that's the interview of the lady, which was attacked by those arrogant whites, Garrett Cliff and Stenhazen. So this one was on the 23rd of October 2021. Let's go back a bit so you know what I was talking about. I know I just went and rambled and go on. Gosh. Oh, Nando's take Garrett Cliff off menu over highly disappointing conduct. Was written on the 23rd of October 2021 by Belinda Peto. Nando's has announced that it has terminated its sponsorship of Garrett Cliff's show, The Burning Platform, on Cliff Central. This followed a social media backlash after one Movement SA spokesperson, Mutsuli Ravikani, I hope I'm saying the name right, posted a clip from Thursday's show with comments describing the conduct of Cliff and DA leader John Stenhazen as the literal definition of Black Lives Don't Matter. In the video, Cliff dismissed Rakivani when she attempted to talk about race baiting. Ravikani was asking Stenhazen about the controversial Racist versus Heroes election poster the DA withdrew in KwaZulu-Natal. When she began to talk about her personal experience of racism, Cliff stopped her by saying it was completely unimportant to all of us. Times Life has approached Cliff for comment, and this report will be updated once they're okay. This was old, but we know now what happened. So yeah. So that was what was going on in South Africa. We've been trying to fight, as you can hear. We're still angry, we're still crying, we're still swearing at everybody. It's bad. So, and then the next one, let's look at Zuma. Zuma was in court today as usual. He might as well just get a hotel room near a court. So he was in court today, but things didn't go his way. So I'm trying to see Mashaba. I can't see, there's just too many It's all about the elections. There's more about elections than anything here. Hot topics. Let's see what's the hot topics. So yeah, people. So investigate me. Are you ready to turn horror? Oh gosh. You know, there's so many ever since the starting of this. What you call it? The local government elections. Campaigning and so on, there's been so many shootings, political candidates and so on being shot down, and it's just bad. You know, you get to be scared these days to be involved in politics now, because it seems like now it's just another game of people don't mind to lose lives. I don't know when did politics being about people not wanting to lose their seats, but all about trying to just be in spaces, because now every day now there's a drive by shooting, there's you name it. So let's just say Zuma today, Zuma news. Oh, my eye, people, is killing me, and I don't know. High Court dismissed Zuma plea for state prosecutor Billy Downer's removal in Amstel corruption trial. So that's where we are. Let's see. Babu Zumuti. Whew. This is okay. This one in front of me now. We came out of the Soviet. We are doing this one. I'm doing it from the Mail and Guardian. It says High Court dismisses Zuma's plea for state prosecutor Billy Downer's removal in Amstel corruption, and this is MC Ferreira. I hope I'm saying it right. And this is 26 October 2021. The High Court in Pietermaritzburg has dismissed Jacob Zuma's plea that state prosecutor Billy Downer be removed from the Amstel corruption trial that flows from charges he first brought against the former president 16 years ago. On Tuesday, the court found that Zuma had misdirected himself in law, and that both parts of his special plea, the first seeking the prosecutor's removal and the second is acquittal, should fail. Judge Pete Koon said April 11 as the date for the trial. Judge Pete Koon set April 11 as the date for the trial to commence, and warned Zuma, who was in court on Tuesday, to attend and clarify that with respect to his fitness to stand trial, he must submit to medical examination by an independent doctor should the state so wish. Zuma's legal team immediately hinted that he may seek to appeal the dismissal of his special plea. However, contrary to speculation, such an application will not, in this instance, suspend the trial. Advocate Tabani Masuku asked Koon whether his client could be excused from attending court in the interim should the defense file any interlocutorial application in the interim which had nothing to do with the trial itself but with this matter. He added it could be an application for leave to appeal. Koon, reading a summary of his 107-page judgment, said Zuma's essential argument was that his fair trial rights as guaranteed by Section 35C of the Constitution were under threat because Downer lacked impartiality and therefore little title to prosecute. This first part of the plea was brought in terms of Section 106(1)(h) of the Criminal Procedure Act, and so Zuma argued that Downer had failed to uphold the standards of prosecutorial independence and impartiality needed to ensure that his trial was fair and conducted in accordance with the Constitution and the common law. Zuma further alleged that Downer had behaved in such a manner that he had made himself a witness as to the question of whether there was political meddling in the case. The central issue is whether the alleged lack of independence and impartiality of Mr. Zuma's concern that he might not enjoy a fair trial will negate the title to prosecute which Mr. Downer would otherwise enjoy, he said. Cohen said it was no way alleged that Downer was not properly appointed and authorized in terms of the Constitution and the National Prosecuting Authority (NPA) Act to prosecute Zuma, and the court's inquiry needn't to go beyond this question. It had to consider what was meant in law by title to prosecute, and the proper reading was a narrow one where Zuma's arguments of zeal or lack of impartiality on Downer's part did not enter consideration. I have concluded that title denotes a standing, as in locus standi, which is a legally recognized interest, he said, adding that the law made no distinction here between public and private prosecutors. This was important as the standing or interest which a private prosecutor was required to have in the subject matter. The prosecutor is incompatible with the notion of them being independent and impartial. If a lack of independence and impartiality will deprive a public prosecutor of his or her title to prosecute, then very few in any private and statutory prosecutors, by the very nature of the interest of standing they are required to have in the first place to prosecute, would have the title to prosecute, said the judge. The correct conclusion was therefore that title to prosecute cannot be negated simply because a prosecutor might not be independent and impartial. Cohen said, adding that this interpretation was consistent with that of the Supreme Court of Appeal in Porritt and another v. the National Prosecuting Authority versus the National K. The judgment was binding on the High Court, even if Cohen disagreed with it, which he pointed out he did not, and has always boded ill for Zuma's special plea hopes. Cohen said the Supreme Court of Appeal was clear that the protection of an accused lay not in a general standard of impartiality required of prosecutors, but whether the accused would receive a fair trial, he said, and the kind of complaint Zuma tried to put before the court should have been raised in a substantive separate application for the removal of the prosecutor. In the present matter, there is no such application before the court for adjudication. The sole issue is whether the special plea in section 1061 H has been established. I conclude that Mr. Zuma's complaints, even if taken at face value, do not affect the title given its correct meaning in section 106 1H of Mr. Downer to prosecute, Cohen said. He moved on to dismiss the argument by Zuma's counsel that should the law not fit, it be developed to cater for cases like this. I also conclude that there is no basis to assign a wider meaning to the word title to include instances of a lack of impartiality or bias on the part of the prosecutor. By developing the law in terms of Section 339(2) of the Constitution, as adequate remedies already exist in our law to cater for the situation where the fair trial rights of the accused would be infringed, he said. As the plea for acquittal brought in terms of Section 106(4) of the Criminal Procedure Act hinge on the success of that for Downer's removal, the court did not need to consider this further. Turning to Zuma's allegation of instances where Downer abandoned impartiality, Cohen dismissed this as largely based on speculation, inadmissible hearsay evidence, and not fact. In the few instances where there could at best be seen as possible irregularities, these were not of a nature demanding Downer's removal. Zuma alleged that Downer had turned the arms deal trial into a personal crusade, pursued in the knowledge that at the time the wider NPA was tainted by political influence, which inter alia led to manipulation as to the timing of this indictment. But in a protracted argument in September, counsel for the NPA countered that Downer deserved an apology for being maligned and a medal for resisting impropriety, impropriety, ah, impropriety within the entity. Impropriety within the entity. Something doesn't sound right there. He was the one who stood up for justice and truth every time, stood up to his bosses every time, Advocate Wim Trengov said, after describing the application as Stalgengrad Season 27, as it was widely expected to fail. Zuma's decision to lay criminal charges against Downer with the police last week can perhaps be read as a backup tactic in his time won't delay strategy. In his statement to the police, he seeks to revive several of his complaints against the prosecutor but adds another, namely that Downer authorized the NPA's legal team to give a journalist an affidavit referencing a certificate stating that Zuma had suffered an unnamed medical emergency to a journalist under embargo the night before it was formally filed at court. The charges were laid in terms of Section 41(6) of the NPA Act. It prohibits the disclosure of confidential information without the express permission of the National Director of Public Prosecution. The NPA denies any wrongdoing, noting that it signed a confidentiality agreement with regard to the former president's detailed medical records. Zuma's legal team had earlier this year, before he was granted medical parole for his imprisonment for contempt of the Constitutional Court, raised the spectre that he might be too ill to stand trial for corruption. Cohen had in August made a ruling that the state may appoint a medical expert of its choice to examine Zuma and, if necessary, give evidence as to whether he was able to stand trial. But Zuma's lawyers argued that this was dependent on a medical report first being produced by the former president's doctors. They accused Downer of trying to breach the order by sending medical doctors to examine Zuma, which he refused to allow. Cohen said he dealt with his earlier order in paragraph 284 of Tuesday's judgment for the sake of clarity. I have clarified in my judgment that the order which I granted was unconditional and not qualified in that way, and that Mr. Zuma was required to submit to medical examination by a doctor or doctors of the state's choice to determine whether he is fit to attend court. Zuma's appeal bid as to the special plea would face a double hurdle. Firstly, he would have to satisfy the requirements that there is a reasonable prospect. Another court will come to a different conclusion. That is unlikely here, given the legal precedent. Secondly, the Valhuis rule holds that superior courts require particularly compelling grounds to interfere in the interminated course of a trial in a lower court. That's how Tatu Zuma is going. Okay, I think for today we are going to stop.